Hey, folks, welcome back to the Land Fixer podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Logan Swanson. And today we're doing a solo podcast, no guest, so boring, but we're going to be covering some updates. Before we get into all that, remember, if you need funding for any of your land deals, your development projects, your entitlement projects, land flips, whatever it might be, check us out at www.landpartnerfunding.com. Or if you have a deal you want me to just kind of quickly review instead of doing the whole application process initially, you can email me at thelandfixer@gmail.com. Okay. Also, if you're a landowner and you're just looking to partner with somebody or you're looking for someone to consult with to determine the best and highest use of your property to get the sweet, sweet high rates of return that you can with land, just reach out to me. I'll be able to help you along the way. It's been a few weeks since we've had a podcast live. We've been doing some traveling. We've had kids home for the summer, working on some aspects inside of our business and also setting up some stuff outside of our business. We're opening a coffee shop, so we just have a lot going on right now. But no excuses. I'll stay on my schedule moving forward. Today, I have a couple topics that I thought would be really useful if you're a real estate investor in general. Okay, if you're a land investor, maybe more helpful. But I would like to discuss with you some of the things that I'm doing to increase my effectiveness, my accountability, and very intentionally build out my network for real estate investing. Okay. There's probably been nothing more important to my success to date other than some creative thinking and a lot of networking. I've personally done hundreds, I'm sure actually thousands of phone calls with folks within my community of land investors, or I guess outside of my community of land investors as well, folks that are maybe capital partners, etc. It's kind of endless. But I am always taking phone calls with people that could potentially bring me deals, bring me money, bring me connections. Maybe they're title company owner, maybe they're a software developer. Like, our industry is kind of limitless insofar as how much you can leverage the value other folks bring to the table. So that is the upside. Networking is almost always free. I mean, there are kind of exclusive paid ways to network. I know guys that go to specific gyms because rich people are there and things like that. You can pay to go to high dollar seminars or get into inner circles. There are paid access sort of ways to do it. But I would say the biggest downside to what is otherwise a relatively free and easy access form of improving your business is that, yes, you'll be able to talk to a lot of people, but it is a huge time commitment if you are going to be doing this en masse, which I have done. I have literally dedicated weeks to being on phone calls, building relationships with people, really trying to establish myself in a community, things like this. So the offset to that is, well, you may not always get a return. Networking is one of those things where you can put a bunch of time and energy into it. You can have a lot of really, really great, engaging conversations. And, oh, next time I'm in California, I'll swing by and visit you or whatever. And it goes nowhere. You never talk to that person again. As much as I'd like to think all my networking has been extremely valuable, I have definitely dedicated hours and hours and hours of time in having conversations that have yielded me minimal to no return. It always gives me some good feels, like, oh, that felt great to talk to this person for a while. But what did it accomplish? So, as a business owner, you're always kind of towing that line. The most valuable resource you have is your time. So, if you're committing that into random conversations with whoever you ran into on a Facebook group or direct messaged you or whatever, you're giving away a lot of valuable bandwidth. Okay. So I don't need to go on and on for that. But what it has made me think about is, how can I do this very important thing, which is networking, more intentionally? So I guess let's highlight some of the things that you can get from networking, right? If you can establish real relationships with people, they can bring you deals, they can bring you knowledge. If you have folks that are willing to take your phone calls because you've helped them in the past, or you've given freely of your information or your assets or whatever, you can accomplish a lot. Or I'm trying to think of a good example. I've cultivated groups, so I can go into a cultivated group and say, hey, I need help with XYZ problem. And I won't just kind of get vague solutions. I'll get very direct solutions. Call this person. He helped me with this similar situation. Here's the problems that I ran into. And you can just bypass so much headache, trouble, etc. And if you're really intentional, you can network with the exact sort of people that you need because there's a deficit of it in your business, whether it's money or knowledge or whatever. So this networking is very important. How have I done this in the past? Well, I've created groups, I've been in groups, I've showed up to live events, I've joined masterminds, I've gotten access because I bought a course or I signed up for subscriptions or whatever. And it's effectively endless, the number of communities that you can insert yourself into and dedicate time into. And I have definitely seen plenty of returns. But for where I'm at in my career, which is, okay, I have the sort of size of business that I want. There's not a lot of moving parts. It's relatively simple. I don't want to do hundreds and hundreds of deals. I want to do a few big deals a year and a few more medium-sized deals a year. That's kind of what I want. We want to get to the point where we're yielding, $1 to $2 million profit annually. That's what we're trying to get to. And that doesn't need more deals. That kind of needs bigger deals. And with that, you need more help in understanding risk, in mitigating risk. You need more help in underwriting and spreadsheets and taxing and accounting and all this sort of stuff where a great network comes into play. But the higher you go up in this level, you can't just trust any Joe Schmo who says they've encountered this problem before and dealt with it. You really need to have cultivated relationships with folks that are like-minded and committed, dedicated in the same way that you're dedicated to your business, to your craft, to any number of aspects of your business that are important to you. You need that kind of mirrored by somebody else. So I'd recently been thinking about starting a mastermind. And anyone who's in a mastermind knows that there's a few different ways they typically go. One, you can be in the quote unquote mastermind where you're in a Facebook group and really you are just kind of lumped in this group where some people will post kind of maybe questions about their business that some folks answer halfways, but don't really always go in depth, or sometimes they just make snarky jokes and comments, and it's just not very helpful, these sort of large format open groups. I have joined somewhat structured mastermind groups that were poorly selected, meaning the sort of people that were in there, they were all showing up with an empty bowl that they wanted filled, or maybe not all of them, but a majority of them, or just too many of them, where they aren't contributing. They're in this like taking pose way too much. So you find yourself in there contributing, and receiving little. There's also paid masterminds. I've been approached dozens of times to enter into a paid mastermind because if you're not putting up money, there is no reason for you to show up every time. There's no level of commitment to it. On and on and on. The reason I'm saying this is because I decided, all right, I'm going to create a mastermind and I'm going to intentionally create it in such a way that it will be maximally beneficial to all parties involved and minimally detrimental in terms of time commitment or that sort of succubus relationship where people may be contributing more than they're receiving. So I wanted to kind of share this format that I've come up with. We officially launched our first full meeting starts next week, but I thought a lot of people might benefit just from my mindset or my process as I created this. I've been thinking about it for a couple of years, but I was in conversation with a previous guest on this podcast, a friend of mine, Bhaskar, and we were just talking about how powerful it would be if you were actually able to connect maybe a handful of people and get them committed for a year with the goal of these relationships not lasting any short term, but rather like decades. Like, how can I find people, network with them, learn from them, help them, and they help me, and create relationships that will last a decade? That was my goal, and Bhaskar echoed it as well. So I knew that the limit of participants was really important, right? When you're trying to consider time, you really lose attention for anything that runs past an hour on the internet, in my opinion. So if you're going to try to do anything remote, like Zoom calls or whatever, an hour is kind of a maximum. So I knew I wanted between somewhere like somewhere between 5 and maybe 10 participants in this mastermind. And I ended up deciding on 6 because there's 12 months. That's easily divisible by 6. It just kind of worked out in the monthly structure that I was hoping to establish. I wanted it to be curated, and I did not want to be the only manager of it. So every partner had to sign up, commit to a year, and they're going to host 2 meetings. I wanted these meetings to be easy online meetings, but also in person meetings where we could really connect and get to know each other and spend a lot more time together so that, when you have sort of an intimate relationship with somebody, you don't just know their voice, you know kind of how they smirk when they're feeling snarky or whatever. Like, you really get to know somebody when you're in their presence. And that's huge for me. I'm a big relationship guy, so I like being in person as much as possible. So, because of that, 6 people on a rotating schedule. 1 month we could do a Zoom meeting, and the next month we could do an in-person meeting. Since there's 6 members, each member would host 1 Zoom meeting and 1 in-person meeting. If it's going to be in person, we had to shrink, right? So we chose this area, the state of Texas, the great state of Texas. So this is a Texas-based mastermind. All of the participants are located in Texas and within a reasonable driving distance of one another, because every other month we're going to have to go in person. So the further I dug, these questions sort of got answered. All right, there's 6 people. We're all local. This is how much time we're dedicating. What do we talk about? Well, each person will bring the topic that they are most interested in hearing from the group on, or they think would contribute most to the group in general. So each person not only hosts a meetup online and a meetup in person, but they're also the moderators of those meetings of those meetings. And they introduce a topic and they curate it. So since it's my group, or the one that I've initiated, I'm doing the first 2. And I'm going to be focusing on annual goals. So in the first 1-hour Zoom call that we're going to have, I'm going to discuss, which is actually the second half of this podcast, which is how to create annual goals, 3-year goals, 5-year goals in such a way that other people can critique them. 5 or 6 people could all critique them and be talking in the same language, so everybody can understand why everybody's critiquing these things. There's accountability. Everything's very specific, etc. So there's like kind of a science behind how you set these 1-year goals in such a way that you can show people, get criticism and accountability, which, in my opinion, as far as a mastermind goes, that's like the most important function of a mastermind. It is to learn, test yourself, and get a bunch of accountability. So that brings me to today. I was sitting here in preparation for my event, really trying to take what makes sense to me in my head. When I set a goal for myself or for my company, it makes sense in my head, right? And then I'll usually sit down and put it on a spreadsheet somewhere. That might be a number of deals that we want to do or a certain revenue that we want to hit. Then I'm smart enough where I'm usually able to look at that goal and figure out the KPIs, the key performance indicators, or whatever metrics need to be accounted for in order to realistically achieve that goal. And then sometimes that's where I flame out, or that's where I stop getting specific. And even though I've managed to do that and achieve or exceed goals, oftentimes it is far from the best ways to do so. So here is what I've come up with, me and ChatGPT kind of bouncing back and forth for the past hour or 2. And some friends that I have, I've conversed with them over this process. And I think it's pretty good. I think it's enough that it should bring value to you if you're looking to do anything similar in your business. Or this can also kind of be a template for if you want to go hand select, which I did, and engage members of a mastermind to hold you accountable and grow your business. So this starts with kind of what's called the SMART goal setting standards. SMART is an acronym, SMART. S in SMART means specific goals or a specific goal. So oftentimes you'll hear people say, I want to double my business, or I want to do more deals, or I want to exit things more quickly, sell properties faster. I want, they will say these things that are sort of vague as goals. A specific goal statement is really defining exactly what you're wanting to do. So it'll be like, I will do this thing by this date, put a when in there, using the following process in maybe this specific geography or using this specific strategy or whatever. So you're going to say what you're going to do, when, how, and any other ancillary terms that need to be in play. So if you guys have been listeners to my podcast, I think maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, I was discussing my big project that I'm putting together, or at least working on, which is my 1,000-acre subdivide project. This is a theoretical 1,000-acre subdivide project, but that's my goal. So this is what I'm using as sort of my base. So an example of a specific goal is I will acquire and close on a 1,000-acre subdivide project by 2026, raising equity and using seller financing. I will be targeting this county and that county. I'm not going to tell you my counties, but I do have those figured out. So that's the specific goal. It is detailed. There's no vagueness in that goal. Then the M is you need measurables, measurable targets, anything that this is your spreadsheet information. Okay. So the size of my project is 1,000 acres. Within that, I have this whole spreadsheet I've been working on for feasibility. Okay. I'm not going to sell a 1,000-acre subdivide project in a single year. It's going to be, right now, I'm looking at probably a 4 or a 5 phase subdivision, which means I have to have a structure where I go spend roughly $3 to $5 million to acquire a piece of land, subdivide it, improve it in 5 phases, probably running power and road at a minimum, selling these parcels, most likely using owner finance. And I need to leverage. So I need to have lenders interested in this process. So I need to demonstrate that it's secure, profitable, and there is a realistic expectation that it will go as planned, or I can underwrite it in such a way that it is so conservative that it will still be attractive to investors. So size of my project is 1,000 acres. My acquisition budget is $3 to $5 million. I'm going to be generating roughly 90 to 100 lots out of this. I'll need to raise the capital, or I'll have to engage in some level of seller financing. I need to reach an ROI of roughly 2.5%, or 2.5x, excuse me. I need to most likely engage with, I'm ballparking here, but I imagine I would have to engage in hundreds of negotiations to find an ideal property that fits my standards for this project. There's only a few hundred out there, really, for the areas I'm looking with this level of acreage. Or I'll have to negotiate with multiple sellers to combine neighboring lots. So the A, so that covers our specifics, and our measurables. Now we're talking about our achievability plan. Is this realistic? And what are the core levers to accomplish this? So I know it's achievable because I've done multiple projects, not this big, but very similar, right? Where we're doing rural subdivision, we're leveraging owner financing to accomplish it. I know the areas that I need to operate in to still accomplish these sorts of projects, because you can't do these anywhere and still sell them and be profitable in this sort of leveraged structure. I know this. I know how to gather the data. I know how to reach out to the sellers or the landowners. I know how to engage with them in my CRM, and I know how to pitch this project to them. And I also have existing investor relationships to secure the financing necessary to do this project. So these are all the things that are necessary to achieve the plan. Now, why is this relevant to me? Well, I'm looking to, instead of do many deals, take on a few big deals. So the structure of this deal will pay my bills, if I get it done, for like 2 decades. Okay. This isn't like a retirement plan, but 5 of these is a very comfortable retirement plan. So if I can execute one and it goes well enough that it's attractive to investors, and I can go execute another, I could do one project every other year and live happily for the rest of my life. So this is relevant to my 3-year vision because I eventually want to have these notes cash flowing to the degree that I can solely focus on passion projects, one after another, whatever really sparks my curiosity. And it's also helping me to reinforce my team by putting the right people in place and having the predictable cash flow to keep them paid, even in downtimes in my business. Okay. Then the last thing I wanted to discuss here is, so that was my achievability plan. All right. Well, there's a few bottlenecks that I want to be able to overcome as well. So in my goal system, this is a little more than the SMART system, so that's why it doesn't exactly line up. But I'm specifically outlining what I imagine to be the biggest bottlenecks, roadblocks, anything that is most likely to cause problems or keep me from achieving my goal. So if the market is softening or my land is overpriced, say I buy too high or I estimate my dispo values too high, we could get into a mess, especially when you're holding a large inventory. Personally, if I'm inconsistent, that will cause an issue, right? So if I'm talking to a lot of land sellers one week and then I go out of country like I did, and then I'm just not taking care of business for a week, big land sellers don't like that. If my team's not big enough, say I don't have a dispo system lined up, so then I'll go through, I buy it, collect all the money, we start cutting it up, and I have lots sellable, and then I hand it to an agent, and I don't have any other process from there. That's a real mess. So that's a bottleneck that I need to predict, my dispo strategy, inbound lead handling, all this sort of stuff. Capital, what if there's an equity gap? Maybe the seller won't finance, or I can't find someone who's liquid and courageous enough to take on an endeavor like this with me, or I struggle to pool multiple people together. Knowledge. Maybe I struggle with getting the county on board. Maybe I don't know the water table well enough. These are the major hurdles. And all of it is, in my opinion, overcomable, achievable stuff I've dealt with before. But those are the biggest ones. Poor underwriting would be the most likely culprit. Now that I'm bringing this to a mastermind, here's where the real value comes in. All right, I put together this SMART strategy to achieve my goals. And I'm going to bring it to my mastermind. And the last one, let me skip this. Time bound. So the T in SMART is time bound, meaning I have to have all of these things in order with a date of accomplishment. If I'm going to get this done in a year, I need to have by the first month. I need to really understand my buy box. I need to have the financial model dialed in. And I already need to be pitching people saying, hey, this is when I'm going to need money. This is how much money I'm going to need. I'm going to go find this deal and I'm going to need to move fast. By the way, these deals are on market, which is pretty nice. But I'm going to need to contact landowners, brokers. There's people who exclusively do off-market land. I'm going to have to be working with them. I'm going to need to have to probably by the second month have all of the contract information well designed. So if they're owner financing, the LOIs that I'm going to be using, if I'm going to be attaching any sort of clauses into the contract on the purchase saying the land has to perk, or I need to be able to put a well in, or any sort of stipulations, those all need to be accounted for. And then by the third month, I need to have all that paperwork and my capital partners in line because I need to be talking to land sellers at that point. I need to be making offers. Okay. Within 6 months, I want to have 5 to 10 landowners that are willing to sell. I need to have preliminary plats drawn up for those lots and financial modeling for each of those 10 projects, 5 to 10 projects. If there's any sort of development that needs to be done before closing, I'm giving myself a 3-month gap for that. And then in the last quarter, so this covers up to month 9, in the last quarter, I should be closing on that property and setting up my disposition strategy because my goal with this strategy is to be liquid in the first year. I need to be paying myself in the first year, as well as paying back my debt and all this stuff. So those are all my time bounds. And this is a 5-year dispo project, really 4-year. I'm budgeting a year a phase. But now I have this all outlined and detailed in such a way that's digestible to my team. They're all speaking the same, or my mastermind. They're all speaking the same language I'm speaking. I'm going to bring it to them. And since I know these people, many of them have done development projects or subdivision projects in the past. They definitely know how to underwrite real estate and they definitely know how to read financial modeling. They will be able to shoot holes in it. They're going to say, Logan, there's no way you're going to find a property like that for $3,000 an acre. You're ridiculous. Or what counties are going to allow that density of 10-acre subdivision projects? Or how you're budgeting this much for roads? That's ridiculous. You're going to need, you're budgeting $500,000 for roads. You need 1.3 million for roads. Whatever. I'm going to be bringing them the project to the best of my ability, executed, the goals, all of the smart underwriting done, and they're going to shoot holes in it in any way they can for the first round. The next round, they're going to provide as many solutions as they can. Hey, Logan, we've underwritten similar deals in the past. Here's the spreadsheet that we used. How does that stack up to yours? Compare and contrast. Or we have a broker in our group. Maybe she says, hey, look, I actually have 5 properties in my portfolio right now of contracts that I think are suitable for this. That's a win-win because I may be able to work with you to get them dispoed. I already have a relationship with them. So I can go to them and say, hey, this is someone in my network that's willing to do this project with you. Maybe I can connect you with the seller and create some creative seller financing there. Or maybe some of them know capital people. And they said, hey, look, Logan, you are going to need a lot of money for this project. I have folks that have funded my deals and we've funded a lot of creative stuff. So if I go to them and say, hey, this is a good guy, he's trustworthy, he's done big deals in the past, that introduction is much more likely to yield a positive result than if I'm just calling Joe Schmoes through Facebook or whatever other way. I've done a bunch of stuff to raise capital in the past. From there, you're going to gather all that framework back, that group feedback, and you are going to rework any aspect of your big goal that you want to rework or you feel compelled to rework. The hard part is they need to be brutally honest with you because you need to shoot this endeavor full of holes as early on as possible so that when you are actually in action, when you are out there trying to execute and achieve this goal, you are not surprised by the thing. I mean, you will be surprised no matter what, but you're at least trying to identify those hiccups and surprises as early as possible. And you also don't want to be deflated because you poorly estimated and people that you were bringing the project to weren't honest with you because they didn't want to hurt your feelings or they're too nice or whatever. So if you are interested in establishing a mastermind like this yourself and would like to have more conversation with me, that'd be great. My mastermind's closed. I'm not doing this to get anyone else in it, but I do think this format is extremely valuable. I am not charging anybody anything. The only thing I am asking for is a commitment to attend every meeting, host the events that you are requested to host for, and stick around for a year. If the mastermind is not valuable enough to everyone that they want to stick around after a year, maybe I'll replace people, but there's a good chance that I'm going to either reformat and try again or scrap it. But the way that I'm looking at things, I don't think there's a way I could lose because I'm going to be spending time with other investors. Most of these people do more business than I do. That's kind of my goal. Is like I have a lot to contribute. I'm not going to downplay that. But I want to be surrounded by people that are challenging me, know more than me in a lot of different arenas. Oh, and this is something I actually skipped. That's very important. When you're creating this mastermind, I don't think you really want a bunch of people that are relatively in competition with each other. That could be an issue. You want people that are going to be wide open with you, and you need to be able to be wide open with them without reservation. So the last thing, once you have your 1-year project outlined, detailed, everybody's reviewed it, then you need to formalize your timeline for accountability with your group. Okay. So if I say by August, I'm going to have my buy box finalized, my financial modeling all completed and very well done, I need to send that out to them by August. And if by August I have not, they need to be like, Logan, you don't even want to achieve your goals. They need to be hurting my feelings a little bit. Don't be a lazy SOB. You want to achieve your dreams, you got to achieve your dreams. So, and we would all do that. Mine would be followed up with, they would create theirs and follow up with them. And that's the first meeting is just addressing how to create this stuff. And then in the second meeting, when we're in person, that's when each party will have 30 to 45 minutes, each member, to talk about their 1-year goal or their 3-year goal or their 5-year goal. I don't really care. They need to address a goal. I would suggest a 1-year goal, but present it in this formula, be open for criticism, and really try to get honest feedback from everybody so that they can make the biggest impact in their business and their family life as possible. Then quarterly, there's a bunch of other stuff in here that I'm probably going to do, but it's not finalized. There's probably going to be a year-end master meeting where we're all going to maybe go somewhere really nice. I've already been looking at like huge Airbnbs where we all like chip in $1,000 and go stay in like, some crazy place. But this is the framework that I think is going to really help us moving forward in my business and the people around me. So I hope that was useful. I hope you took a bunch of notes because this is stuff that I've not really ever seen anyone talk about. They tend to get really closed off. Accountability is scary. So a lot of people move away from accountability instead of towards it. But all right, we'll wrap there. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Reminder to like and subscribe and share. If you need funding, go check out landpartnerfunding.com. If you want to talk to me directly, email me at thelandfixer@gmail.com. If you're in the Dallas area and you want some good coffee, we're going to be opening up a coffee shop here soon enough. So hold tight. That's coming. Folks, I love you all. I appreciate you so much, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.